All right, we are live. Good morning, everyone. A special early Saturday edition today with the Lord of the Kaiju himself, Frankie B. Washington. Thanks for coming.
Hey, how you doing? Are we live?
Oh, yeah, we're live. We're live.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? I was all soaking it in. I'm like, Master of Kaijus. That is a title.
It's interesting. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on for such a long time is your work is so specific. You know, most people, they like kind of have a thing, but like they'll do other things. But you, it's like mecha and kaiju. You were like extremely hyper focused. You were the go-to guy if anybody needs one of those two.
Yep.
How'd you get into that?
Oh man, I mean, for me, my story goes all the way back to, you know, the late 70s and stuff. You know, I was probably like early teens and stuff when I got introduced to the Creature Double feature, the Godzilla Toho film, some of the early, even I think at the time, because I'm from the Northeast, from Boston. So at the time they had a show called, it was like a block of shows called Force 5, which it was done by Jim Terry Productions, and they brought a lot of super robot shows here. Grandizer, Vanguard Ace, who I love, Get a Robo, but they called them the Star Avengers. What was the other one? Guy King. I said Grandizer already. And then Star Zinger, which they transformed into Space Geteers.
Nice.
So anyway, when they had that block of shows come in, and then adding on Creature Double feature with Godzilla, that just, my young mind exploded. I just love this whole concept of just giants and especially with super robots like that, where human beings would interact with the robots and the robots themselves became almost an extension of those human beings. They had like special weapons and attack moves and stuff like that. And the stories felt like comic books. They you know, you would have a, you know, some conqueror, some alien conqueror coming, or some mad scientist, and pretty much the stories are straightforward. Clandestine organization finds some special individual who can operate this special robot, and then they have to defend the Earth against the evil. Cut and dry. I love it.
Nice.
But inside those stories, inside that sort of simplistic kind of overall story, you had all this other interesting things going on, you know, just, you know, father, you know, children, you know, dealing with their parents and life and death and stuff like that. That is what made it so compelling for me. So, you know, I love superheroes. I love horror. I love fantasy as well. But this really something, it just keyed to me. Like I was like, oh man, I got to draw these things. And so I would say those brought me into it.
Nice. And so you mentioned you did read comics and everything. So when you were young, you know, like when you're in school and you're always like doodling on your homework and this and that, was it always like kaiju and robots already? Or did that sort of take time before you're like, no, this is my specific interest?
There was a mixture of that. I mean, I got busted a couple of times by the teacher, like in math class and stuff. I would draw. I think at that time I was doing a lot of like cyborg kind of characters, you know, mixture of that. I definitely had monsters. I don't think I was calling my monsters kaijus at the time. I think they were just giant monsters and these bizarre creatures. My imagination was so, I mean, there's one thing, sometimes I go back in my mind sometimes, and I kind of wish that I could, you know, bring back a little bit of how my childhood, my childlike mind, you know, of creating characters. I wish I could retap that energy that I had, because the stuff that I was creating was just so out there. You know, I don't even have that. I don't even have any of the drawings from my childhood, which is unfortunate. I wish I could, but I knew that at the time I was drawing all kind of really wild, crazy things because I had no limitations. But as you can imagine, because of years of working in the industry, you know, I still have a vivid imagination, but it's more geared to like, you know, my experience and the things that I've already worked on and stuff like that. But yeah, so I would draw kind of stuff like math class or whatever, and then sneak it over and do my homework.
I found when I was in school, the best way to get it out of trouble is like you make it sort of themed to the subject. Like, you know, if you're in science class, you do like a mad scientist working with the beakers, and then you got a monster in the background or something.
Oh, see, you had a plan. You were the man with the plan. I like that.
Well, there was only so much detention I could take.
I was always good though. I was probably people. I always joke with my wife. She calls me Loki. I was always good. Like I always get, because the thing was that I would do little things, but I would always be smart enough to do my homework. I would get things, so I would never get. I don't think I've ever done detention. Never.
Really? Wow.
Never got busted. Nope. Never got busted.
Oh, I went to
right underneath the Y. Some other cat would be out there making noise, and I'd be like, "Whoops, it's me." Better talk to this cat behind me.
So, when you were in school, did you take art class, or how did you develop your art skills?
Yeah, I think that in middle school, I think I pretty much had art pretty much through your middle school, definitely in high school, and it was during high school that they and thank goodness at the time, and you're talking about and heading into the late 80s, because I graduated in 88. I was 18. Okay. So we're saying 88 going back 84. Okay, so 1984. So anyway, my teachers, I had a lot of great teachers who saw the potential in me, even when I didn't know. I mean, during that time, I had a lot of ambitions. I was like, I want to be a robotic engineer, and then I had at one point I wanted to go in the Air Force. And then another time, I just had a lot of, you're at that stage of your life where you're just like, everything, the world is just opening up for you. And just like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to do 1,000 different things. But my teachers always saw that I had like a vivid imagination. My grades were really good. I was great in pretty much everything except math. Math I struggled during that. I think I graduated on a D when they used to give D's out.
D for done.
Yeah, D for done. But they saw potential. So what they did was, in my final 2 years of high school, they had the wisdom to put me in this program. It was called the Occupational Resource Center, and it was located at Madison Park High School. And it was like a half-day program. So it was like half day. You could either choose to go there, and then like noontime, there would be a bus there, and they would take you to your home school, or vice versa. So what happened at this particular school, Occupational Resource Center, they would send students there, and you would do classes that were geared to your specific skill set. So they had an illustration program there.
Nice.
And had broadcasting, and they had all this other stuff. So I was in the illustration program. And so I had 2 years of just going there. And then I took, at that time, they had other programs where I remember doing Saturday programs at Mass College of Art with, with others, like the graduates there, whatever. They had a program for kids from high school. They just, at that time, I just took advantage of a lot of different programs. And that the bug was already getting inside of me. And I think what really completed it for me was when my teachers, my instructors at the ORC program, they called me into this big room. And I never forget it. I was terrified, because when they were like, "All right, Mr. Washington, come on." I just remember the dude coming to me, and he's just like all stern. He's like, "Mr. Washington, come on." And I was freaking out. I was trying to, you go through your head, you're thinking about whatever you might have done. I'm like, I'm in trouble now. And I remember going in a room, and there was all these adults in this table, and they sort of just were looking at me, and I'm like, I'm freaking out. And then all of a sudden it was like, "Well, congratulations. You're one of our scholars, and we're going to give you a, what's the thing when they pay for college?
Scholarships.
Scholarship. There you go. Yeah. So I became one of the scholarship people. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that one of the teachers felt that much about me that they put me in this program. And I actually got the scholarship. So they just said, "Okay, now you have to decide what school you want to go to." So immediately, a couple of schools reached out to me. I remember Joe Cubitt's school reached out.
Really?
Yeah, Joe Cubitt reached out to me, and I turned him down. Well, first I was intrigued, but then I didn't want to leave Boston. They were located in New Jersey, I think, and I just was like, I don't want to go. I don't know anybody there. It was all those weird fears that I had, and so I said, I'm gonna look for something that's more local. So then I remember an architectural school reached out to me, so I went down. And they took me in, and I just was like, I'm not an architect. I don't have that kind of mindset for that kind of stuff. And then I think Mass College of Art reached out to me. But then there was another school called Butera School of Art.
Oh, okay.
And they were a small school. A lot of people didn't hear about them, but they were like, "Hey, we want to come in," stuff. And I remember going in, and they just were straightforward. They were like, "Look," they were like, "We're a school that is going to teach you to hone your skills so that you can make money as an artist." I kid you not, that's how it was. It was just like, "We want to teach you to make money to do this profession. Are you interested?" And I said, "Yep." And that was it. And I liked that. I liked the fact that they were telling me not the fact of, oh yeah, you're just gonna do art and all this stuff, and the sort of, I don't know, I call the flighty, the romance of being a starving artist kind of mentality. It was more like, we're gonna train you to take skills that you learn, to hone what you already naturally have, and then go out there and then make a living so you can support yourself, and eventually, if you have a family, then your family, and so forth. And I said, okay. So it was a three-year program. I took it.
Nice. Yeah, we were talking a little bit before the show, and I had taught design classes for 10 years, and that, to me, is one of the biggest failings of modern college, university education.
Wow.
When it comes to the arts, is like, nobody's talking to these kids about, how do you actually make money?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I guess I got really lucky. Butera's closed now, unfortunately, but Butera was run, their mentality, first off, they were a very small school. And that's what helped them. And most of the people that worked there, the curriculum, the people that worked there, teachers, they were all ex-students. Nice. So they worked in the industry, worked in. I mean, some of my teachers did work for toy companies, illustrations. Some of my teachers did illustrations that appeared in, like, at the Boston Globe or the Boston Herald. They worked in advertising. They sign painting. I know it was also a sign painting school, so it was 2-part commercial. Then it had sign painting. I mean, they did all this stuff, and the key thing was that they were more of a trade school. When I think about it, they were so adamant. I mean, we literally had to get up in class and pitch, pitch project. Like, you would sit there and you're nervous and you had to pitch. And then you get critiqued, and you sit down, and you had to pitch yourself. And then I think that I had to go to the Museum of Fine Arts to do like some written thing on art. They said, go in there, choose an artist that you think you like, write a little thing about it, and that's it. They didn't even focus on that kind of stuff. So the old school artists and that stuff, none of that. They just said, nope. You have to do that because it's part of your you have to do that, whatever. But they like, that's not going to be the focus. We're here to teach you how to function in the real world, to do stuff, so that you're working for an agency, or if you're working for any kind of client, that you understand that you are a contractor, and that you have to, once you get hired, you got to, crush your deadlines, make edits, and be thinking. You got to be, you're not just an automaton or a Xerox machine, that you actually are going to be part of something, and that, you got to give it 200% if you can. And then that's how you'll be able to survive. So I'm very fortunate that I got in when I did, before they closed.
Definitely. That sounds like it was a great school. That's one of the biggest problems I saw with the kids who were in my classes. I was one of the few people who was kind of pushing towards that, because I was working at the time. And, I get the first year students to be like, well, this doesn't work because the composition and this and that. And they tell me things like, but that's my art. That's my design. And I'm like, great, but you're going to get fired, And then come year 4, when everybody realizes, like, holy crap, I need to make money. They're all freaking out.
Well, you're developing a mentality, and I've noticed that there's this mentality. Well, actually, here, I'll go back. When I graduated, and then during the time when I was going to art school, I actually put myself through school working as a security guard. Now, I've been working since I've been 12 years old. I mean, I've been always hustling, working. And what happened was I ended up hooking up with this security company, and they loved me. I mean, I did a lot of work with them. Eventually, I came to that crossroads where they said, well, Washington, you have a choice. You want to look at being a full-time security, with security, you want to elevate, become armed security officer. And so then that becomes your career path, or art. And I remember my captain at the time, he was a really passionate guy, and he saw how I loved what I did. And he said, Frank, he said, you've gone to school now. You know what you need to do. You need to do what you truly love and that you're passionate about. And so he pushed me to get further into art. And I remember I was really like, I said, man, I gotta get paid doing artwork. And I think that when I finally came to that recognition of it, that's when work started coming.
Yes.
Like I was just like, I said, the next job that comes and it's a paying gig to do art, I'm going to take it. And I did. And it ended up being for a production company. It was for this production company in Waltham, Mass. They were working on their first film, was called Next Stop Wonderland. And they brought me aboard and stuff, and I was doing storyboards for it. And at the time, I was still doing security, so it was like a half day there and then half day. I mean, God, the time that I don't even know how the amount of time. Like, I mean, I barely slept, but I got through it, and then eventually they brought me on full time, and so I got to work on 2 feature films and stuff. And it just was, it was one of those things where I started saying, okay, from this point on, I don't care what it is, I have to get paid doing art.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be this whole pro bono stuff. It can't be this whole none of that.
Yeah.
You have to believe it, because you have to. I tell any artist out there, if you have it in your mind that you're not worth what somebody's trying to ask you to do, then you're not ready.
Exactly.
You're not ready. You have to believe. You have to be like, hardcore. You have to be hardcore in the thing, like, I am worth this. And the money that I'm asking to do whatever this person wants me to do is nothing compared to possibly the money they're going to make off of what I've just done.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the mentality you got to have.
Artists, yeah, I do wish most of these programs would have more business-oriented classes, because you have to understand, like you're saying, your worth. How do you monetize the worth? Like, hey, this is going to take me X number of hours. I'm going to need whatever these materials are.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be enough compensation, because you can't live with your parents forever, and you don't want to be on the street. So,
well, I think that it's kind of sad, because I think that I watched this YouTube video that had was it Don Bluth? I think Don Bluth was talking, and he was explaining something to a room full of young people and stuff. And he was explaining. He said, "Look," he said, "you're out here and you're complaining." He said, "You're complaining about the fact that you're trying to send stuff to Disney and all these different animation places and whatever." And he said, "But you're failing to understand and to see that you have this technology in front of you, like YouTube and stuff like that. Why are you not doing your own animated stuff to get out there? Why are you not putting your own stuff out there?" He said, "The thing is that you're getting in the way of yourself, and what happened is that you're spending hours complaining, going online, complaining about the big companies and blah, blah, blah. Look at those big companies could care less. They honestly, they're doing well. They have IPs that have been here for like over 60 years. They have an audience that is like generational. They are going to be selling merchandise, whatever. They are going to be making money. You are, if you're not doing anything. So the thing is that you need to take whatever that energy is, the time that you're spending going online and railing off at them, take that energy and utilize the internet while you can. Like YouTube. Why, if I see an animator that's talking about being an animator, why aren't you animating shorts and having your own YouTube channel and monetize it? If you want to be in comic books, you got to do it. The thing is that when I first did my first comic book piece back in 1991, I talked to a few people, but I mean, after that, I was like, I'm doing this. It wasn't like I spent months and months, even like years, asking people, is this something you want to buy or whatever? No. There was none of that. I just was like, I'm just going to do it. I think that we almost have a sense of this mentality of just like, let's just talk, and then time. And now I'm looking at my watch going, boy, time is just going by.
Yeah.
2 months, 3 months, 6 months, nothing done. Just still talk. And the talk is all generated toward the big guys. Why isn't Marvel doing this? Why isn't Disney doing this? Why isn't DC doing this? And you're worrying about somebody else's house, somebody else's massive mansion, when you should be worrying about your own house. Worry about your own house. That's what Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird did.
Yep.
That's what Todd McFarlane did. That's what a dozen other successful, people who've gone this route, who started out independent and whatever, ElfQuest, all that stuff. They were at the place where you're at now. But what happened, the difference is that they said, I'm just going to put it out there, and then I'm going to learn from it. Brian Pulido. Yeah. I was watching, I met Brian Pulido years ago, and I actually worked with did some work with Stephen Hughes's wife, Barbara.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. They did, and the thing about it, he was talking about how, like, with Evil Ernie, he was like, when Evil Ernie came and me and Stephen Hughes and stuff, but he said they originally, when they started shopping it around, they didn't go through Diamond or anything. He said they were like, he was literally going to shows and stuff, and he noticed that people were digging Lady Death.
Yeah.
And so he made a market change. He said, you know what, if people like Lady Death, I'm not going to really get rid of Evil Ernie. He's still going to be there, but I'm going to focus on Lady Death. that tells you right there that his mindset was about, yes, creating, but also business. And I've always found that to be the major like thing with art, that where it's like, okay, I'm an artist and I have all these artist feelings and I'm gonna get all these feelings out and all this stuff on my paper or whatever your work is. But then the mean business monster entity, blah, blah, blah. And then in that same tone, they'll be like, well, you want to buy my piece of art? You know what I'm saying? It's weird.
Yeah.
Weird dynamic where it's like, yeah, you're throwing shade on business, but you want somebody to buy your artwork, which is
business. So speaking of business, so you mentioned you work for the production company. I've seen you've done a lot of work for toy lines. Yes. So how did you make that jump into comics?
I'll be honest with you. And I don't know if people believe me or not. I don't know how I've gotten most of the gigs I've gotten. I would honestly say word of mouth. What happens is that, and I'll tell any artist out there, you need to work on your reputation. Your rep is everything. And that's something that's for any contractor out there. If you're a plumber, you're a carpenter, a mechanic, whatever, your rep is everything. When I got into the industry, that was one of my key component things. I said, I want to do such a great, great job that my name is just uttered on the lips of people. I want people to mention my name, be like, yep, this is the guy you want to get because he's going to crush that deadline. He's going to give you quality work. And what happened is when I work with so many different people talk. You know? And what happens, especially when the internet came, I utilized the internet like I did when I used to walk around with my massive portfolio. I used the internet as a form of showcasing my work. And the thing is that when you start showcasing your work so much and it's different and you're energized about it and whatever, people reach out to you. That's how I've gotten most of my toy things. Or I've been able to work for toy companies and stuff because I might have worked with an art director from the past who happened to, jumped from advertising and started doing work for a toy company. And they just remember who I am. Your reputation is everything. I get people who contact me in DMs or whatever, and they always expect some kind of like, well, there must be a secret, passage through the art industry to get into different things. And sometimes it's not even that. It's just the fact that you put yourself out there, your name and your brand, your name, which is your brand, and your reputation precedes you. Yes. That's as simple as that. Most of the gigs I've gotten, even up to now, have all been people who've just reached out to me and said, hey, how you doing? I check them out. I see, because I get a lot of different people, and some people, some don't fly, but some do. It's those few that do that turns into something bigger.
Definitely.
So I always tell people out there that, you should be focusing on putting yourself out there. If you have a page or whatever, or if you're putting artwork, put your artwork out there and make sure your artwork's different. Make sure that you have a personality that is one where what people can look at and say, I want to work with this person. If you're going online and you seem like a very angry, down person, whatever, then let's be honest. Most people don't want to work with a person like that.
Definitely.
They're not going to. I tell people you should be really careful about stuff that you're posting online because you don't know who's looking at it. That was something that my many of my mentors always told me. They said you have to be careful because the thing about it is that we live in a world where judgment is made in seconds. Yes. You could seem like the nicest person in the world, but you may say something that's idiotic, whatever you may think is funny. A company can look at it and they'll be like, huh, okay.
Well, and the other thing is worse is something that seems perfectly normal today, 10 years from now, might not be.
Hey, I can tell you never knows. Yeah, I can tell you a short story where, I've always been, somebody who was very eclectic. That was it used to be a tag I used to use. I was like eclectic artist because I wanted to have a portfolio that sort of showed this range of just different things. Like I can draw toys, I've done fantasy stuff, and just a massive range of things. Well, there was one point where I got fascinated with doing erotic artwork. I was like, oh, this is a number I haven't really dealt with. And I actually did some work. I did some stuff. And then I decided at the time I had a website. I was like, oh, I'll put some stuff. And I didn't think the stuff was that, too crazy or whatever, but I put it up. And I'll never forget it. There was a stretch of time. And this is during the time when my heyday, when I was really working with, I had like a couple of agency clients. I had big agencies. I had a couple of small ones. I mean, I might have totaled up to like maybe 10 to 12 agencies. And that was pretty impressive at the time. Mm-hmm. So that was some really great time. And all of a sudden it got quiet. And I was like, you know, because at that time you can almost tell when work would come. Like you'd be like, okay, during the summer it would slow down, but then the fall would speed up or whatever. But I was like, man, it's getting kind of quiet. I mean, what's going on? And thank goodness I had one of my art director who is, you know, he's friendly with me and stuff. And he reached out to me and he said, Frank, he said, I tried to get you into a gig on a job. And he said, and what happened was you got blacklisted. And I was like, what? Ooh. Blacklisted? And he's like, yeah. He said, you're getting flagged. That's what it was. It wasn't blacklisted. Yeah. But he was like, you're getting flagged. And I was like, flagged? He said, yeah. He said, our company did this look. They were searching, you know, whatever. They wanted to take a look at your artwork to see if you'd be right for this particular campaign. Mm-hmm. And I was getting flagged because I had that artwork on there. And the thing was, I sat back and I said, where's my real money coming from?
Yeah.
You see the reality of it. You go, you know, I was experimenting with a little bit of erotic art, but that's a niche market and I'm not making that much. But I'm making my main bulk living through this.
Right.
That artwork had to go. Yeah. That was like, yeah. And that was something where I said, okay, cool. I got rid of it. And I'm glad that I was able to do some, you know, finagle and get back into it and stuff like that. But that was a scary moment for me because literally because of that could have killed my career.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I don't know. The waters are tough to navigate. Let's put it that way. But you always got to try. I think you're right. Be professional.
Yes.
You know, try to speak well and not get yourself into the raging rapids.
Well, the thing about it is, let's be mindful. I always hear people talk about how the fact that they say, well, I got rights. You know, when I ask people, well, you create a character, you have rights, right?
Sure.
Now try to imagine now you have, you know, suddenly you got a character that becomes a hit. You get big. You'd be like Robert Kirkman, right? Mm-hmm. Really big, all of a sudden, whatever, and you're making money. Now this is your brand, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what if you had somebody you hired who's going out there online and they're saying all kind of craziness? Yeah. And they're not producing, you know, on time, and they're just all over the place and whatever. What do you do with that? This is your brand. This person, this person is doing these actions that could jeopardize this brand that you've spent years to build. Don't you have a right to reprimand this person? Don't you have the right to, if it comes to it, to fire this person?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're right. So the thing is that I can look at a company and say, well, you know, they own the IP. And that's always my argument. I'm like, they own the IP. You know, I can't, you know, I remember when Transformers came out, the movie, and, you know, I'm a huge fan of the G1 stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I looked at the first animated movie back in the 80s. But when the Michael Bay stuff came out, I was like, you know, I got the little niches in my neck. And, you know, and I definitely was like, it wasn't my cup of tea, wasn't my flavor. But what shut me up was the fact that it made over $1 billion.
It did make a lot of money.
Yeah, I sat there and I said, oh, yeah, this thing made over $1 billion.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I can't say nothing to that. I haven't created anything that's making $1 billion.
That's true.
So I mean, the thing is that somebody liked it. And anytime I hear that, I go, well, somebody must like it because somebody just spent, you know, it made $1 billion. If it wouldn't have made $1 billion if people didn't like it.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's where my mind goes. It's that rational, you know, the reality of it, where you go, yeah, you know, if people truly didn't like it, if people didn't like the MCU and all the stuff that's going on, trust me, if the money's not coming through, they would kill it. It would die. Like, literally, like done. Star Wars, if people didn't really like what's going on with Star Wars, really, done. They'd be like, cut, done. It's not pulling in dollars. That's what these studios understand. They understand money.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is that they're going to make their money. Now, you may not agree with how they're dealing with it with comics and whatever, but in their minds, with these companies, comic books is such a niche market.
Right.
Comic books have not. I was listening to a YouTube show the other day, and they were talking about how like comic books were breaking like 1 million copies back in like the 90s.
Yep.
Like going into the 80s and 90s. Can you imagine that? 1 million copies. What comic book is doing that today?
None of them.
See? So there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So for all the, if you're going to sit there and have an argument about why companies are doing what they're doing, you're not seeing comic books selling millions of copies.
Yep.
So to them, they're looking at it going, okay, we got these IPs, and whatever. We'll just keep selling our toys and figures, and people clearly are buying them. I mean, let's be honest. I'm seeing figures going for an insane amount of money and whatever, and merchandise, and we'll do the films. And then eventually, what I think the plan is for a lot of these big companies, that they're just going to farm the IPs out to other more established, like indie companies, like Boom Studios or Image or whatever. That's to me, that's a business plan, like a smart business idea, where it's like, okay, we don't have the overhead expenditure, let's just farm them out.
Yeah, I mean, we already see that a bit with Marvel and IDW. IDW's done Avengers, Spider-Man. They've done some of the Star Wars line. Yep. So it's coming. But speaking of selling comics that everybody wants.
Here we go.
Let's talk about Kaijus and Cowboys.
This is crazy. It's funny because there's been a journey. I posted a video the other day where this has been a real big journey for me, where back in 2013, I had done a book with James Biggie called Robot God Akamatsu. And I think a lot of people remember me from that. When we did that, we had it got into the psyche of a lot of the fan base. They really loved it. But unfortunately, I think at the time, me and James we were at that place where we were two individuals who were creators, and we had a lot of other things going on in our lives. And we lost this ability of continuing on Robot God Akamatsu. Like we came out the gate, like full rockets glaring, ready to drive the pace, and then all of a sudden it just sort of puttered out. So then after that, I just kind of was like, okay, I got Robot God Akamatsu went the way it went, and then I decided to start jumping into other things, and I happened to get, again, it's one of those things where I got contacted on Facebook by a guy named Simon Strange, cool name, and he was the owner of Colossal Kaiju Combat. It was like a video game company that he had and that they were trying to do. And he said, hey, I like what you're doing with sketch cards and stuff, so I'd like to bring you on to do trading card art. And so that kind of brought me back into Kaijus, where I did like over roughly, I would say 6.5 sets for the Colossal Kaiju Combat game. So I don't know what that number, it had to be over 300 cards. That was the rolling pin. So it started got me rolling up to this point where, again, I ended up doing a couple of various little gigs here and there, and I came across Matthew Blair, and he was looking for an artist for a web comic that he had called The Secret Lives of Villains, and started working with him. And I think we just reached our 6-year anniversary. We're coming close on that, and we just was working off and on. And he had all kind of crazy stuff in it. I think we put some robots in there. We put kaijus in there. We put all kind of crazy stuff in there. And last year, we just decided, we were like, hey, man, let's try to do a comic book and see what happens. Like a full-out 20-page book and stuff, full color. And let's just see what we can do. And he was like, well, I don't think, we'll go back and forth. But I think we mentioned something about a cowboy, and then it's kaijus. And I was like, man, they could be kind of fun. I've done some Western stuff, and I love kaijus. And he suddenly came back with a story, and he said about space. And I said, let's just make it weird and try to bring back that kind of flavor of the old school stuff, like, that I love. Like Go Nage was doing with Mazinga Z and that kind of weird stuff. And let's see what happens. And we did the pages. So the book is done. The book was done. And then we started shopping it around. And then 2021 came around. We found a publisher. So it actually is getting published.
Oh, it is. Nice.
Yeah, 2022 is when the series is going to be actually getting published by Second Sight Publishing. They loved it.
Excellent.
And so what happened was Matthew said, well, we want to do a Kickstarter for a 0 issue. And the 0 issue will only be exclusive to the Kickstarter. And technically, it's more of an intro comic to our character, the hunter, or who I call the bot with no name. And then just showing what he does as he's trying to fight against these kaijus and stuff.
Very cool. So is this going to be an ongoing series with Second Sight?
Yes. I think Matthew's mapped it out to 12 issues.
Wow.
So far. But again, hey, if people love it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's the whole thing. My hope is that we can really, because I've always seen these arguments inside the Kaiju fandom, where they go, oh, we want to see kaiju books and we want to see stuff and whatever and more. Well, this in the indie market, there's a lot of people doing kaiju related comic books.
Is it really?
Yeah, there are a few people. I mean, there's was it Xander Cannon, Kaiju Max. Some guys, I can't think of their book. They just did a Kickstarter called Territory, which is about kaijus. I mean, honestly, I feel like we need somebody who can do almost like a database for kaiju comic books. And anybody out there who hears this, I hope that you work on and develop it. Yeah, because I think it's important, because I think the thing about it is that the fandom, we really need the fandom's help to keep these kind of stories going. I mean, this is a great time for all of us. The fact that Godzilla versus Kong has done so well, that Legendary's been doing that, and the fact that, regardless of what, Ultraman got, is being published by Marvel, and so this is a fantastic. We are right now in a whirlwind of just great opportunity for all of us to be able to put out stories and to really enjoy these characters and this genre, and we can't let the momentum stop on it. So, that's one of the energies that's sort of getting me going, and as well as others as well.
So is this your first Kickstarter?
Yes, it is. I would say first, like me, like actually being as part of that Kickstarter. I have worked on a few Kickstarters where I was more of the reward tier artist. Okay. Yeah. So I think there was one that I did called Terra Kaiju a couple of years ago. And I did some original artwork, and I was part of that as a reward tier. And I did one with Alterna Comics. That one it wrapped up this year and stuff, and a few others during the year. So I've been mostly more of a reward tier. Somebody contact me and say, "Hey, would you want to be a reward tier artist?" I'm like, "Sure." But this is the time where I'm in it, like I'm part of this.
Nice. And so, how have you found the whole Kickstarter experience compared to just getting hired to do the art and, either by a company or by an individual? How is that different for you?
Well, I mean, the thing is that it's much more, it's definitely I feel like a salesman. You definitely got to do the sale. I think you got to getting the message out and stuff like that. It brings me back to the days of working in advertising. It's like guerrilla marketing. Like the only way people are going to find out about us is that you have to be out there. You got to put stuff out there. You got to sort of make sure that your stuff isn't not the word stale, but it's like you have to energize. Every time you do a post, it has to be something where it gets people excited to want to go check it out and stuff like that. So yeah, trying to do the sale is a lot more work. Work. I mean, if somebody hires you, then they kind of know what you're, they've seen your style, they like it, whatever. So now they're just like, okay, let's just talk about what the cost is going to be, and then let's get this thing going. That's cool cut. This is going to be like literally 30 days of just trying to get people to, get into what we're trying to do, and then hopefully they'll contribute, and then we can continue this journey and stuff like that. I mean, the book's gonna, regardless of what the series is going to continue, but hey, any extra that we get from this is going to help for the production.
And does it sort of change your mentality when you're creating the book, in terms of like, oh, this would be a great thing to include in a Kickstarter, or like, oh, I can imagine like this shot, like this panel as, the front page of the campaign, or is that all sort of after the book is made?
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about any of that. It's funny. It's like me and Matthew talked a little bit about it, and Matthew actually set the page up and stuff, and then he showed it to me, and there were certain things I liked and whatever, and and I said, okay, yeah, that's cool, that'll work, whatever. But I don't know, I'm a very to the point kind of person. One of the things I learned in advertising is that they always said if you can make it a simple, easy navigation for people, then you do really well.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to convolute stuff. I've seen some campaigns where it's a lot of convoluting, where you put so much stuff in there, and really what people are looking for is the key things. I want to see how the artwork may possibly look. That means sequential pages, and then whatever your reward tiers are, just show me what your reward tiers are, and then you sort of take it from there.
So speaking of it, why don't you sort of run us through this campaign a little bit? Okay.
Well, pretty much, we got the story right there about the comic. It's a brief little, story about it, about the, what's going on. And then we put some pages in there because that's important. We want people to see that that's how the artwork's going to look. And I actually, let's see if I have any. I brought some of the pages. let's see. Yeah, there you go. There's our guy. Oh my God, that face. And again, I wanted to definitely bring back a lot of the classic feel of the comic books that I loved. Bright colors, that kind of thing. You know, I grew up on that kind of stuff. It's really about just grabbing people and bringing them in. A little back history about me and Matthew. Right.
And reward.
And then we got some reward tiers. This right here was a page that shows like a concept sheet, which people will be able to use as a digital wallpaper. It's just the early design concept. So I was like, fine, you could use that, but I've been working on some new concept stuff that is not going up. we gotta have something for the actual series.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we have, here's a patch design right here, that shot of the face, the hunter's face.
I really like how graphic it is.
The funny part about it is, for a time I actually got hired to do a lot of patch artwork.
Oh, interesting.
That's another thing too. It was something where I got approached on Facebook. Somebody DM'd me and said, "Hey, I like your work. Would you be interested in doing patches?" And I was like, "Patches? I was like, patches? Like, what do you mean patches?" He said, No. He said, "There's a community of," it was called Morale Custom Patches. And I was like, okay, I guess. And he's like, "Well, do you do this kind of art?" And I said, "Well, I don't work in vector art." I said, I do hand work, and I'm a hand illustrator, but I know my way a little bit around Photoshop, and I can send a file as a TIFF file and stuff like that. So the lines, somewhat clean or whatever." He said, he said, "All right, I'll hire you." So I worked on some stuff, and next thing I know, I was getting hired by so many different people.
Wow.
To do like all this like art for these patches. And I'll tell you one thing, the technique that these patch makers, or the skills that it's unbelievable. I've done pictures of like, well, actually, hold on a second. Give me a second. I'll see if I can grab one for you. All right. Hello, I'm back.
All right.
Here's an example.
Nice.
Now this one, and again, it has Velcro on the back. You go this way. It has Velcro on the back, and this was an idea that I was doing. I proposed with one of the patch makers that I was dealing with about doing this series of patches called Fight, and he did a few of them and stuff like that, in which I had Kong and I had Godzilla and stuff like that. But look at the level of detail.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's crazy. Hold on a second. Let's see if I get some more light in there. But yeah, I mean.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, nice. Well,
so technically, that's what the level of these patches and stuff. And I would just do the artwork and just send them off to them. And next thing you know, they'd be like, "Okay, here you go. This is what it looks like."
Man, that's cool. It's
so
sorry. Interesting to think that there's all these little communities that you would never in a million years think are really a thing.
Oh yeah.
And it turns out that it's got a huge fan base.
Oh, well, that's the same thing like sketch cards. I was just saying like how I got into sketch cards back in 2009. I got contacted by this guy. And again, I was like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" He was like, "Hey," he's like, "I saw your work on Facebook, and I think you'd be really great for this." He's like, "Have you ever heard of sketch cards?" And I said, "Sketch cards?" Now at this time I'm doing stuff for ad agencies and whatever. And I said, "Sketch cards? What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, they're like 2x5, stuff like this." He's like 2x5. And here, I'll take this out. And they're cards that people collect. And I said, "Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah." He said, so he's like, "I want to, I think I'm going to get you on some sets." So my first set that I ever did with this company, which was called Fifinity Productions, was Archie. And then from there was Greatest Hero. Yeah, I did some Archie stuff because that's technically what they do. These companies go out and they license from various IPs. Like I worked on Lady Death. I worked on Slash. I worked on Voltron. Cool. I worked on Marvel stuff. Oh yeah, I worked on a ton of card sets and stuff. But anyway, just in case, I did a video the other day where I wanted to showcase the cards that we have with our Kickstarter.
Oh, that looks awesome.
Yeah, this is a official Kaijus and Cowboys sketch card. And if people go for that reward tier, I wanted to showcase the level of art that I'll be doing. So when people see black and white, I don't want them to just think that it's just going to be just like black and white and whatever. Just like, no, this is black and white, and I tend to add gray tone to it. Now, if you are so adamant on having color, then after the campaign's over, you reach out to me, contact me and then say, hey, Frank, I'd like to have a color card. That's going to cost a little extra, towards me, but you get a color card. I'll do a color for you.
Oh, that's
not too bad, huh?
Yeah, and the nice thing about that you mentioned it, I think a lot of people, when you say black and white, they think like children's coloring book.
Exactly.
Which is not exactly what they're looking for when they're spending money usually.
Here's another example. This was the character.
Oh, nice.
And also I had some people question me. They said, hey, well, what about, various other, characters? And I said, I don't have a problem drawing somebody else's character as long as I have reference or whatever. But, even on these cards.
Oh, man, that looks so cool. How long does it take you to sketch one of these cards?
When I did these, and I did these on, was it Thursday or Friday? It took me around, because I did 4 cards. So it took me around 4 hours. Close to 4 hours.
Well,
so
it's not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. And it really just depends. And also, I want to show some people, if they decide to go for the original artwork, this is how I do my original artwork.
Nice. What size is that?
This would be an 11 by 17 comic board. Blue line art comic board. Okay. And what happened was, years ago, I noticed that there was a couple of artists that were doing like these. This is technically roughly the size of how a comic book, the actual standard comic book size is. And I noticed that a couple of artists were doing this because first off, in my mind, I'm like, this saves money. That's the key thing. I mean, let's be honest. When you're a contractor, you have to sit there and try to figure out, like, how do I, keep my expenditures, hopefully low. And then, you want to be able to make money. You don't want money just to be like pouring out and stuff. So anyway, I also started enjoy drawing in such a smaller size. I started doing so many sketch cards and stuff like that and storyboards. I was like, I really like this. I'm really comfortable here. So what happens if people decide to go for the reward tier for the comic book pages, then, I'll cut I have to cut the board or whatever, depending on the pages and stuff. And there you go. And we'll mail it out. I'll sign it, of course.
Very cool.
So you're definitely going to get some really cool, original artwork and stuff like that.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And I see you've got some stickers.
You got some stickers, yep.
And
you put an example. Actually, scroll back up. Yep, right there. Oh, scroll down. That I did a little video. This little video of me doing a card. That was something that I asked Matthew to put in, because again, it's all about availability. I want people to see.
Nice. And so that's another thing I noticed too. You recently seem like you're really trying to ramp up the old YouTube channel.
Well, I started this last year, and for years, trust me, I've always had other artists pecking in my ear going, Frank, you need to be doing this. You need to be doing. I'm like, all right, whatever. And then I guess because of the pandemic, I looked at my YouTube, and I had this YouTube channel for a while, and I started looking at it, and I said, I'm just going to treat this as my portfolio.
Yeah,
that's it. I said, I think it's a great device that I can use as a way to get information about my artwork, and it's kind of interactive because I'm talking and whatever, so people can hear my voice and whatever, and they can get a sense of who I am. Because I think that for many people out there, it is very important for them to have some kind of connection with an artist. And since you don't have a lot of the shows and stuff like that, they just want to get a sense that whoever they're dealing with, this particular artist, that there is that human connection.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I think it works really well for artists in a couple of ways. Number one is, if I'm skeptical about a work and I don't know anybody on the creative team, I'm more likely to say, I'll pass.
Yeah.
Maybe next time. Whereas if I say, oh, well, okay, this is I don't really know about the subject, but it's a Frankie B. Okay, I like his work, so I'll back this. And the other is, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, but it definitely gets it out there, and in spaces where people a lot of times they like watching the drawing streams just kind of like as a meditative thing.
That's right.
And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I like this guy, and they kind of want to support you, but I think a lot of people I think on both ends are a little hesitant about like a Patreon type thing where, I don't necessarily just like throwing money at people.
Exactly.
But I'm happy to support you if you're making something. Even if it's not necessarily something I'm 100% into or that I have experience with, like, okay, well, I'll go along with it.
Yeah. And one thing about me is that, as you can probably imagine, I love talking to people. That's always been my greatest. I say that's probably my greatest strength is that, I will talk to anybody, even people who may not like what I'm doing. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I remember once going to a con and me and my wife was setting up at the table and this woman came. It was early as the show was opening up and stuff. And this woman came by and she looked and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Good morning," and whatever. And then she immediately came at me like, she was like, "Well, I bet you want me to buy something from you, right?" Yeah, like that kind of attitude. All right. And I smiled and I said, "Oh," I said, "Please, miss, please." Because she was about to walk away. And I said, "Please, I said, please, miss." And I put my hands up. I showed that I was not threatening or anything. I said, "Please." Yeah, well, hey, look, I understand. And I said, "Look, I said, please." I said, "Yeah." I said, "To a certain degree, yes." I said, "Yes and no." I said, "The thing about it is if anything, I said, I just want to just say hello to you. And I was hoping that you're going to be starting your day off at this con and hopefully that you have a great time. Now, it is your choice. If you want to come on over here and look at some of my stuff and you want to purchase something. But if you don't, that's okay too. At least you'll be able to go around down Alice Alley and be able to see something. Hopefully something's going to spark inside of you where you want to purchase something from any one of these amazing artists around. And, and in the end, I just want you to have a great time. And that's it.
Yeah.
And she just looked at me. She looked at me with this weird look and she said, "Uh-huh." And then she just walked away. All right. So I said, "Okay." And then my wife was like, "Wow, Frank, how'd you hear?" And I said, "Hey," I said, "I get it." I said, "No problem." And then almost near the end, when the show was about to end, guess who came back? She did. She came back. She said, came and looked over and said, "I'll take a couple of those prints." And I'm telling you, that's the thing. Yeah. That's one thing about me is the fact that I am willing to talk with you. If people come on my page and whatever, and they want to share their thoughts and whatever, I love comments. I will comment with you. You may be expecting something. There's many times I think people want to somehow have an expectation that somebody's going to be very angry with them or be in such a way that's going to be very hostile. I'm not that person. I grew up in a lot of different things in my life, in my past, where I've dealt with violence and stuff like that. I've seen the extreme of it, and it's not a pretty thing. So, and also I've done therapy. I've gone to therapy and stuff like that to deal with my own personal, my own personal feelings of anger and stuff that I've had personally in my life. So I'm definitely one of those kind of people where I'll sit there and I'll talk with you and whatever. Now, if we come to a disagreement or across a road, fine, I'll be like, all right, I'll excuse myself and we're done. In my mind, I'm just done. I'll just be like, okay, I'll shut it down and I'm done. But I've never been a person who's going to get into some shouting match with somebody or whatever. I don't have that in me. I don't get into like long, prolonged debates, especially when I feel like if it's nothing's going to really come out of it constructively. And if somebody doesn't want to buy something from me, that's okay. I've always had the mentality that, and my teachers always told me, they said, "Frank, when 2 doors close, 3 more will open." I tell people that all the time. That's the kind of person I am. I don't look at something where I go, "Oh, it's the end of the world." I look at it like, no, the world's just opening up. If you may not like it, that's okay. But I bet you I can find, at least 4 or 5 other people who might. And that's no sense of being arrogant. I don't think it's arrogant. It's just the fact that I'm very confident in who I am. And I'm confident that I'm somebody who I like talking to people. I want to learn from different people. And also, hopefully, they want to learn some stuff from me, too.
Definitely. So if we can move on quickly, I know you got the Alterna auction coming up.
Yeah, we're still good. Yeah, we're still good. Yeah, I know that's coming today. Woohoo!
So I want to get to a little bit of a Kaiju lightning round.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
All right. So first of all, who's the greatest kaiju of all time and why?
I'm going to go for Gamera. And the reason why is that Gamera is a Ronin to me. He's a Ronin warrior.
Follows no master or?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
All right. And so of the classic kaiju, who do you think needs their own movie right now?
Oh, I'm gonna speak deep down because I've been talking about him a few times. Daimajin.
Daimajin. Oh, interesting choice.
Woo. I love him, man. Just that. It's like I can't even do the face, man. Oh, I dream of that mask, man. Having it. Oh man, I love Daimajin.
All right. And would you say
kaiju though? Would you consider a kaiju?
Would I consider who? Sorry.
Would you consider Daimajin a kaiju?
Well, see, okay, I have a little bit of a philosophical difference with you, because at one point, you had said Log from the Legends of Log was a kaiju, and I sort of disagree.
Okay.
So for me to be a kaiju, well, first of all, you have to be non-speaking.
Oh, okay. But technically, don't Godzilla and them speak? They have their own language.
Well, I don't know, do they? They have like roars and screeches.
In the Toho movies, they did. They have their own speech pattern.
Okay, well, that's a good question, because in the early movies, the first Godzilla, it was kind of a very serious and somber film, and then as it went further, it got very silly.
Yep.
So is this the serious ones or the silly ones?
Well, see, there's that weird thing because people. I've always looked at it like there's a level of silliness, but then I go, there's scenes where Godzilla would get stabbed in the neck and blood squirting out his neck. So it's like, it's like you would see characters get beaten up pretty bad. You see people die, like in Terror Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah.
That's a pretty somber movie. Or like the Smog Monster, Hedorah.
Mm-hmm.
People died. So I don't know. Like, it's a weird thing, but I do know that they do have a form of language. It's almost like a movie, actually not movie, but the book Kaiju Max, which I tell anybody out there, you should read them. Xander Cannon has done a great job with that series of books. I think they're from Ani Press. And God, man, he's captured that feeling of like if kaijus are talking to one another and that kind of thing. But yeah, there's a level of speech. They probably have it in Legendary too.
All right. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess my thinking was more like we can't speak with them. Like we can't. Hey Godzilla, what's wrong? Why are you so angry?
Gotcha.
But now that you mentioned that, I guess you're right.
And Kong technically can too, because he can sign language.
I don't know. I'm like 50-50 on that, to be honest.
All right.
In some ways it's kind of cool, but then it's like, I don't know. I kind of liked how originally a lot of these kaiju were kind of like physical manifestations of like primal rages and, not quite Lovecraftian, but almost, they don't really care about us. We're just kind of like things in the way. More like people think of ants. And so to me, that was part of the appeal. But I don't know, when you get Kong like signing like, oh, I'm scared or I miss you or something, like it just kind of feels weird.
But see, that's what's so compelling. That's why I go right back to it with the fandom and all. That is so compelling because the fact that we're two grown men having a conversation. Yes. But see, that's what I mean. I'm trying to put in that standpoint where two grown-ups sitting here having a serious discussion about whether or not these imaginary creatures have some level of communication. And I love that. That's the greatness about it. And that's where I'm like, man, I dream of the day. Like once I leave this world, that if people look at the stuff that I've done and they literally have some kind of like, they're like, yeah, we got these issues. We're going to Mars, but then, yeah, you saw what he did in Kaijus and Cowboys? Like a deep, but I love that. That's what makes it so great. Because both of us can look at this and have two different experiences with it. And none of it, I don't see none of it wrong. Because I agree with you in that standpoint. I go, yeah, there's certain points in it too. I like that.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, which I think the whole creator-owned books and content, it really has a potential to make it better, is that a lot of these works, people really put a lot of thought into it, even though it's like monsters beating the crap out of each other. Like, there was a lot of thought that went into the writing and, the cinematography and into making those costumes. And it's something that I think in some places you see less today. And when we see that, that's like the fast food of the entertainment industry versus like, maybe you're going out of the way into the country to a questionable looking shack, but they've got the best barbecue you've ever had. Somebody who's put years into learning that recipe and figuring out exactly what wood to smoke that with.
Exactly. No, I totally agree with you. And I think that one of the things about it, that's why it's so important that people like myself and others who are still doing the old traditional ways, that we have to be out there putting this stuff. We have to keep doing stuff traditionally, just like, hey, I don't throw shade on digital artists. I think that if you're a digital artist and that you are able to take the tools and really take it to a next level, I have no problem with that. But I think that it's important that we still have a lot of this people like myself who can literally look at a piece of paper or draw on a piece of wood if it came down to it, or whatever, who can do things with their human hands, like hands applied onto material, and then do. That's because people need to see that. The new up and coming artists need to see that is still something that people are doing out there. So definitely do this thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I like a lot of digital stuff, but the look is different to me. Even though we're pretty good at replicating pen and ink and stuff like that. Yeah, there's just something a little bit more organic to it.
Yeah, it's very clean, and I understand why companies do it. I do. I understand it's about speed. Even animation. I mean, you're talking. When I worked at an animation studio, I got the chance to meet a lot of great animators who did stuff by cell. The old school hand cell, that kind of stuff. And I do understand that it costs money. This is all coming down to cost. And many times, these studios or whatever, they're sitting there and they're looking at their numbers and whatever, and they're just like, okay, are we going to spend X amount of dollars for somebody who's going to do something that's going to take, years? Or we're going to look at somebody who's coming at us with a budget that we can work with or whatever, and they're able to pump it out. Now, again, I don't know. I'm not working for those studios or the production company or whatever. That's their decision. I know for myself that I feel that there are a lot of animators out there who people may not know of, who are just out there, people that we don't even know of. And I wish that they would, have the courage to just come online and jump on YouTube and just do their own animated stuff. Yeah, and I'm seeing some coming out. Just do your thing. Just do it. Put it out there, whatever. And don't worry about the fact of being hired. You might surprise yourself, and you may get, these other companies may come at you. You may get surprised, and Netflix may look at it and be like, okay, we can do something with that. But I would think the first thing is just do it just because you want to do it. I would like to see more of that.
Definitely. So I did have one other question, which is sort of more of a personal nature. You mentioned that you're married.
Yes.
And so I've noticed, a lot of the guys who are married, they've got incredibly supportive spouses.
Yeah.
It's not every wife or girlfriend who would be like, yeah, honey, it's cool. Get up early to talk to some guy you never met about comics on Saturday morning. Yeah, no, that's fine. So how would you say that your wife has, being with your wife or being married or whatever point it crosses over, how did that, change the way you work, either in the style or efficiency, or how did it change you?
All right. Well, truth be told, this is my second marriage. Okay. I was married previously before, and things didn't go that well. I was in a very it wasn't a good place. I wasn't in a good place. I ended up losing my home. Had a home, was gone. Yeah, a lot of stuff. There was a lot of things that went on. And after the divorce was finally finalized and stuff, I really was at a loss. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I was at a place where I just was like, it's just gonna be me and my black cat Shadow. I'm gonna jump in my Ford Focus and just keep driving. I was really at that place. And then, fate just kind of, I ended up meeting Jess. And Jess, I lived in Massachusetts at the time, and now I live in Rhode Island, but she lived in Rhode Island at the time, and we just started conversing and stuff. And she just, I don't know. It was one of those things where I've always been a person who I take chances.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, I didn't want to be one of those people where you just kind of, you block yourself off from the world and whatever, and just sort of hide away. I just was like, you know what, I'm just going to see where this goes. And so I knew that when I was going to move here, inside myself internally, I told myself that I had to make some changes in my life. That meant that I had to care about my wellness. I was at the time when I first met her, I was like over 400 pounds. She was very overweight as well. I was suffering from a lot of medical issues and stuff like that. And just everything. I was at crossroads with my work. I just wasn't in a good place. And then meeting her charged me. It was like something where it was just like, I wanted to be a different person, a much better version of myself. And I wasn't just doing it for myself, but just also for her, because she was going to be, she was in a relationship with me now. And the thing is that I was just like, yeah, I don't want to drag her down. That was always my mentality. I was like, I don't want to drag her down. I don't want her to feel like she latched on to this massive anchor that's going to drag her into the abyss. So, we learned to communicate and get real. And that's why I love her so, is that she's someone who I can just be real with and talk with. And she's very understanding. She's a writer, by the way.
Oh,
she's
nice.
written a few books. Yep. She's written a few books. I've done some artwork for some of them. Cool. And she understands all this stuff. I mean, I laugh sometimes. I told her one of the tests when I first met her was, I asked her, I said, do you know who the Thundercats are? Yeah, and she laughed. She was serious. She said, if I didn't know who they were, would we date us? I said, most likely not. And I was real. Like, I was at that place. That's how real I am. Like, I was like, because I feel like, I'd been through a bunch of dating. Even before my first marriage, and I went through dating, and it just was like, I kind of was like, I wanted to make sure that any woman I was going to be with understood that this is what I do, and I like certain things, and I like monsters, and I like creatures, but also I like the real world too. I like to go on a trip. I've been overseas, Europe and stuff, and I like to stuff like that. But I like my cartoons too, and if you're cool with that, then we're cool. And so once she said that, she was like, yeah, by the way, I read Batman. And I was like, very cool. Ooh, I did one of those like, ooh, I said, okay, let's start talking. So anyway, we went through our own journey and stuff. And, we went on a path of just getting wellness and just dealing with the health. And it's just been great. It's just been wonderful and stuff. She's very supportive. I mean,
excellent.
I've this is a different, this, when I finally proposed to her and we got married and stuff like that, it was much more different than my previous marriage, and which is great. That's always the best thing, when you sort of learn from anything that you've dealt with before. So no, I mean, I think it's important if you have somebody or any support out there. It doesn't have to be your wife or your girlfriend. It's just if you have a strong support circle or people out there that you trust or whatever, that can sort of be there to be that voice of reason, that voice that will say, to cheerlead you on and be like, hey, hey, you got this, keep going or whatever, then that's always a great thing.
Definitely. So you mentioned you travel. Have you been to Japan?
Not yet.
Oh, man.
Not yet. That's on my list. I wish. It's funny when I look back at the time when I was doing that kind of stuff. I wish that I had. I think that I went over to Italy, hung on in Greece for a little bit, and then I hit the back end of Turkey. I was planning on going to Egypt at the time, but I never followed through. And then I don't know, just life. I think it was after 9/11, unfortunately, things changed, and then it just was like, oh boy, I sort of lost track on that. But there was one point where I really was I hit tons of cons. I was hitting San Diego Con, hitting all the different like cons and stuff. But I put it on my checklist, my little Rolodex in my head, and I'm going, yep, check that off. One day I'm going to hit there, and I got to hit. I'm going to hit over to England, Ireland, a bunch of other different places, Caribbean.
Nice.
Well, let's see. Well, we got to see if Kaijus and Cowboys becomes like a massive hit. Then I can just be like, all right.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting to see how that does at like Tokyo Comic-Con.
Oh man, that'd be amazing. Have you been there?
Yeah, I actually lived in Tokyo for about 2.5 years.
Wow, how was that?
It was kind of awesome.
Okay, all right.
Well, it's a little bit different. If you're visiting, the country is fabulous.
Yep.
People are so friendly, they'll go out of their way to help you and stuff. If you live there, it's a little bit different.
Gotcha.
They still have that guest culture, but if you're living there, they don't know what to do with you.
Got you.
So it's I think, were I doing freelance art at the time, it would have been better, but I needed a visa. So I taught English for a few months, and then I did work at design for a company.
Okay.
But I think they like, well, you sort of have to fit the Japanese mold for the art styles. But
yeah, I was about to bring that up. I don't know if my style would fit in there. I think that they have a look. It's funny. Like, I don't know. Have you ever spoken to Matt Frank?
No.
Well, you know who Matt Frank is, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, me and Matt, we talked off and on and stuff, and we did some work for Colossal Kaiju Combat and whatever. Mm-hmm. There was a time, like, he actually contacted me once to do. He was going to see if he could try to get me to do some work on some comic thing or whatever. He just said it was a gig, and I said, all right, cool. And he said, Frank, send some pages, and I sent my pages. I thought they were my, manga-ish pages.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, nothing came of it, and I just feel that I don't know if they my style would ever fit that kind of mold of what they like over there.
Well, it's a good question. Would it be mainstream? Maybe not, but certainly as an indie comic, and the thing there that you have to forget about how things are here right now, because there's a huge comic industry over there.
Oh,
now,
cool.
American comics don't generally sell very well, for various reasons, but it just, you could, it's like when we were kids, you go to a convenience store or the gas station, 7-Eleven, whatever, and there's racks of comics.
Sure.
That's how it is over there. And they do have like bookstores and stuff that cater towards comics, but also they have, they call them manga kisa. A kisa-ten is a cafe where you go and read.
Oh, okay. I've heard of those. Yes.
And so a manga kisa is you go in there and basically you're paying for a drink, and they've got racks and racks of manga there, right? And it's really big, especially in the big cities. Most of the public transportation shuts down around midnight.
Yep.
And so a lot of Japanese culture is you work until like 11:30, maybe midnight. Well, you can't go home. So that's what and especially for women, they like going to these manga kisa because they're well lit. You can get decent food. A lot of them have showers now, actually.
Wow.
And you can rent private booths if you don't want to, sit at the tables. So, and that's what they do. They'll go there and then they'll just read comics all night or take a nap, read a little bit and take a nap. So in those places, you can find more indie stuff. And it seems to me that, I think if somebody ever like curated a collection of American comics, you could get more indie style into those places because they have the capacity. There's enough tastes, at least in the big cities, Tokyo, Osaka, Sapporo, where I think that could flourish.
Well, hey, once we officially, once the series starts kicking into Second Sight Publishing, hey, I'll put it out there to them. I'll be like, hey, look, if they can find a way to get it in there, it'd be great. They just got to find a way. Like, I don't know how that works with, again, if we're going through a publisher, who would that publisher reach out to get to talk to get into that kind of,
That's a good question, and I think part of it might be somebody's got to do a little legwork.
Sure.
I do some comic reviews on the channel. I was doing more before the pandemic when comic shops were open.
Sure.
But so I've got family over in Taiwan. I sent a bunch of books over, and one of them that did really well was Alterna co-creator Ryan Wynn. They really liked his Gods and Gears.
Oh, yes.
So I think that, if you tell Japanese or most people in Asia, oh, you want to do some American comics, they're like, Superman, Batman's okay. Yeah. But I think if you have these more interesting art styles, and that are more story driven, I think they would be more popular. One thing you can look at is even in a country like Japan, the Marvel movies did fairly well.
Okay.
So it's not that they're necessarily predisposed to not liking American comics. It's just that they don't like a lot of the presentation, I think.
Sure.
And I think a lot of them don't relate to a lot of the stories.
Okay.
Well,
yeah, like my feeling is, again, is when we get this book actually released out next year, then what me and Matthew are going to do is just sort of sit back and see the response to it.
Definitely.
It's always tough to really, because at this point, this is just a zero issue right now. You know, what we're going to need to have is literally to be able to have a progression of books, like at least 1 to 5 books or whatever, something, so that people can actually see that we have something before we can be like, okay, yeah, and going out there and whatever. But I am open. I want to be able, my dream would be able to get books in France, get them all over in Europe, anywhere, whoever's, but we first got to have the product.
Yeah, that is the most important.
That's the most important thing.
All right. Well, I know you got to get going soon. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
I know, it's crazy. It's like 11:16 over here right now. I'm like, oh, man.
All right. So for anyone who's just tuning in, Kaijus and Cowboys, fantastic looking new Kickstarter. 22 days to go as of the recording of this video.
And I'm still shaking my head. I'm blown away. Like, even like in like a week, the breath of a week.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
If I know,
almost there.
And I haven't, it's funny because I haven't been really looking at it too much, but it's like I've been having people, like my wife will come and she'll be like, oh my God, Frank, you went up there. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I've been very like low key, like, whatever. I'm like, if we can just get the cake made, anything beyond that is the icing. The icing then comes in. And it's like, okay, now we got some flavors. Get some flavors on that cake.
All right. Well, any last thoughts?
No, I mean, like I said, hey, the Kaiju revolution is happening. We definitely need the support of the fandom, and not just us, but there are others out there too. So you may have to do some searching, but they are out there. There are a lot of different Kaiju books that are coming out, and it just broaden. I ask anybody out there just to sort of be open to broadening your viewing, if you can. I mean, Godzilla and Gamera and Rodan, all those characters, they're not hurting. We're always going to know they've existed now for over 50 years, going even further than that. So, I mean, the King Kong, they're all pretty strong IPs. Now, let's see, there could be some more new future ones right now that we're looking at.
Definitely.
Not just Kaijus and Cowboys. There's others out there too. So you just, they're there. So by all means, we need your help.
All right. And everyone, if you're still watching, soon the Alterna Comics second art auction will be going on. Go hop over there. You can see more of Frankie B.
That's
and the rest of the guys over there. All right. So have a good day, everyone.
Yang, it's a pleasure, man. You take care, brother.
You too.
All right.